Good morning, everyone. My name is Davide Benvenuti. Today, I'm going to talk about our research project that uses animation to explain Renaissance drawings found in Francesco di Giorgio Martini's treatise on architecture. At first glance, this could look relatively trivial. However, I could ask a simple question. Have you ever looked at a drawing of an ancient manuscript or map and understood what these diagrams really meant? Animation has a long-standing history as a form of communication that can translate abstract or complex concepts into intuitive visualizations. However, these competencies and experience are challenged when the animation is asked to communicate the visual content of depicted objects from illuminated codices documenting early stages of modern science. The relationship between text and images crafted centuries ago needs to be decoded with philological accuracy and encoded into a new medium able to communicate to a diversified audience. This kind of virtual reconstruction complements the virtual critical edition of the manuscript available on the EHM platforms. Before I continue with today's topic, I would like to present the larger framework when our project situates itself and how we can address multiple issues emerging from studying ancient manuscripts and maps. Manuscripts, maps, or any ancient documents present critical challenges in exhibition settings. 1. Codices are open on one double page only and cannot be browsed. 2. Large size and highly detailed manuscripts are kept far from visitors' eyes. Reading the pictorial and written elements is difficult. 3. Texts are unreadable for most visitors because of the handwriting and the language. 4. Critical editions, commentaries, translations of the text, and related secondary literature are separated from the object. EHM aims to empower historical sciences with artificial intelligence and machine learning, enabling all users to read primary historical sources according to different knowledge and expertise levels. The virtual reconstruction of the manuscript complements the virtual critical edition available on the EHM platforms and fits into the larger framework of the engineering historical memory. The website is an ongoing research project and involves multiple international and multidisciplinary collaborations with the mission to deliver historical knowledge virtually with interactive applications.
What is EHM? EHM stands for Engineering Historical Memory. Its mission is to give free access to primary historical sources. EHM focuses on how societies around the world used to see each other in the transition between post-classical and early modern periods. EHM engages over 100 research collaborators, trains students, and has been recognized by top institutions from all over the world. At EHM, scholars and software engineers convert academic scholarship into dynamic and intuitive computer applications. Within the EHM applications, you can explore high-resolution digital reproductions of the historical artifacts. Through digital markers, you can access content from scholarly books according to your interest and level of expertise. As an alternative, you can interactively gain new insights into historical information using geospatial visualizations and infographics. Additionally, you can compare and contrast historical information across the different sources available on EHM. At all times, the EHM search engine automatically connects your selection to the online flow of digital media from meaningful repositories, dynamically and in real time. On EHM, 3D models and animations help to deepen your understanding of the relationship between text and images in ancient manuscripts. Video tutorials and reference guides will introduce you to digital history. Text, images, videos, and sounds are available via your EHM desktop to discover stories, inspire interpretations, and ultimately create and share new content. The EHM vision is that free and reliable access to primary historical sources is a fundamental human right, able to foster peace through intercultural understanding and tolerance. Support EHM for free access to primary historical sources.
Now that we have established the larger framework, we can focus on the specifics of today's presentation. I want to discuss the design process developed by the research team, a team that assembles digital humanities, codicology, history of architecture, and animation. We investigated Callimachus' invention of the Corinthian capital as recorded by Vitruvius in De Architectura, and then translated and visualized by Francesco di Giorgio Martini's treatises held in Florence at the Biblioteca Medicia Lawrenziana and in Turin at the Biblioteca of Musei Reali. There are two main versions of the same Trattato by Martini, and there is a lack of comprehensive studies that compare the drawings in different manuscripts. The video you are watching is a demonstration of what the team has been able to accomplish by securing high-definition images thanks to the work by the DIDA lab at the University of Florence. The Singapore team has been able to reassemble what we call a digital facsimile. You can see how the site offers a smooth navigation of the pages and the immediate comparison of pictograms in the two manuscripts ASHB.361 and SAL.148. Images are of an extremely high resolution, allowing for a very close look at the pages. The page in question is 13 verso 14 recto, where Francesco di Giorgio describes the story of the birth of the Corinthian capital, and on the website, there is a direct comparison between homologous drawings in drawing texts. The page we have focused our attention contains translations from De Architectura by Roman architect and military engineer Vitruvius into vernacular Italian. It contains drawings that give us the theorization that Martini drew from his experience in the building sites and his day-to-day fruition of these architectural elements in Renaissance Italy. The team has broken down the process of creating a philologically correct digital visualization of these drawings into 5 main steps: visual translation, visualization of the decomposition, non-photorealistic rendering, 3D visualization, short animated video. Based on Martini's text, the Corinthian order is an imitation of the slenderness of a maiden. The lady's figure depicts the column in the drawings, and the lady is drawn inside a basket surrounded by leaves. The original story describes the burial of a maiden where a vase containing offering was placed over the tomb and covered with a tile. A plant of acanthus grew under, wrapping the vase with his leaves. There is a difference in the textual descriptions from the original Vitruvian text. Vitruvius describes the leaves growing around the vase. Martini's translation results in the leaves coming up from the capital. Hence, he draws the acanthus leaves growing between the abacus and the ovolo, and associates the leaves with the volute. One reason for this interpretation might be based on capitals that Martini saw at this time of rediscovery of classical architecture, when Vitruvius' description was associated with both Corinthian and composite architectural order. Here are drawings done by Stefano Bertocci, showing the breakdown of different parts composing Corinthian and composite capitals, with an exemplification of the proportions between the various elements. These proportions can be found in the description of the ideal Corinthian order in the text associating the proportions of a human head with the different elements. This image reveals a non-photorealistic rendering based on the drawing in the ASHB.361. The capital is modeled in Maya and ZBrush and rendered non-photorealistically to mimic the manuscript drawings with a rendering software developed in Singapore. The animators considered the visual and textual description to allow us to get a dimensional view of an axonometric drawing. With this type of 3D visualization, We can see that digital animation is an effective tool to reverse engineer the architect's creative process. Using a particularly long lens, the rendering perspective is flattened to approximate the design further. The team examined the realistic visualization of the architectural elements that are still extant and used them as a reference. We examined capitals close to the time of Vitruvius' descriptions and then looked at elements of architectural reuse in churches or Renaissance buildings or elements that Martini and his disciples designed. Here, we have an early attempt at a 3D animation. This short video was created to show how the different elements can be separated and assembled. The downfall is that for a non-scholar, this visualization can be misleading as these elements were carved from a single piece of stone and not assembled as a Lego piece and plastered together. A short format animation is made combining all the information. The research team has collated, analyzed, and compared different sources of information, drawing from all the different competencies, and video is shared on the EHM webpage. The Roman architect and engineer Vitruvius attributed the invention of the Corinthian capital to Callimachus, a well-established Greek sculptor. Francesco di Giorgio Martini was the first who translated into Italian and visualized in the 1480s the Roman architect Vitruvius' treatise. Vitruvius attributed the invention of the Corinthian capital to Callimachus, a well-established Greek sculptor. Basket of the buried girl placed above the acanthus root. The third order, called Corinthian, is an imitation of the slenderness of a maiden, for the outlines and limbs of girls, being slenderer on account of their tender years, admit of prettier effects in the way of adornment. Just then, Callimachus, whom the Athenians called katatixi, for the refinement and delicacy of his artistic work, passed by this tomb and observed the basket, with the tender young leaves growing around it. Delighted with the novel style and form, he built some columns after that pattern for the Corinthians, determined their symmetrical proportions, and established from that time forth the rules to be followed in finished works of the Corinthian order. This drawing is the earliest surviving visualization of Vitruvius' story on the origin of the Corinthian capital. After Francesco di Giorgio Martini's work, it appeared in many book illustrations. The drawing of the maiden is a visual representation of Vitruvius' text, but is also inspired by the so-called Medici Venus, discovered in Siena in the 14th century. An ancient inscription declares that this statue is a copy from a work of Greek sculptor Lysippus. Francesco di Giorgio Martini drew the head of a man superimposed to the capital, stressing the derivations of the canonical architectural orders from the proportions of the human body. The capital and the head compose a modular grid to help the architect give the correct measures to the different parts of the capital. In line with the 15th century literature, Francesco di Giorgio Martini depicts Corinthian capitals as what would be called composite in 16th century treatises on architecture. This methodology can contribute to the advancement of learning in the study of Renaissance treatises on civil and military architecture. We hope that it can be adopted by scholars in the humanities and practitioners in animation to map and decode the knowledge embedded in drawings found in ancient manuscripts on architecture, science, technology, and medicine. You can refer to the article published in the online journal Scientific Research and Information Technology for more information about the topic I have spoken about. This research is supported by the Ministry of Education, Singapore, under its Academic Research Fund Tier 1. Thank you very much for your attention.